Hey my friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I've been spending the week with the 2017 Volkswagen Passat SEL. Now this is a car, the largest car that Volkswagen sells in the United States, and it competes with vehicles like the Honda Accord, the Ford Fusion, and the Toyota Camry, just to name a few. So having spent the week with it, I can now tell you exactly what it's like to live with. All right, before we get out on the drive, we're going to talk about styling just a little bit. And before that, where are we? A lot of times people always ask, where did you shoot that video? Today we're here in Phoenix, Arizona at the Papago Sports Complex. That's why you see some of these mountains in the background. And if you recognized it, well, that's where we're at. So styling, the car is why you're watching the video. So here it is. This got restyled in 2016, a mild refresh for the Passat, new grille, 4 bars. Down there you have LED headlights. Those are the top of the line light on this car, standard or halogen on the lower base grade. Here they have LED daytime running lamps, and down below there's also fog lights. Now this grille is essentially what you're going to see on most Volkswagens. They're very similar to Audi in that you get to see the same styling across the board regardless of which model you get. Slightly different for each one, but here, well, it's going to look familiar to you. Now the wheel on this one, also a new design that came with the 2016 model. This is the 18-inch that comes on the SEL. Premium wheel for the Passat. Standard comes down at 16 inches. As we come around the back of the car here, I've always thought that this particular view is one of the best for this car. It just has a nice, handsome, planted look. And that has to do with the window lines. It has to do with the way the rear flanks are shaped. I think it looks good. Now, for the 2016 refresh I referenced earlier, this did get new LED taillights. They really look good day or night, and they're very bright at night. They light up very well. Also out here at the back, the chrome trims are a little bit different this time around styling-wise, give it a little bit more of a premium look, and that chrome line along the deck lid ties into the taillights pretty well, I think. The one thing I'd point out that does kind of bug me a little bit is the fact that we've only got a single exhaust down here. Now that's not a deal killer, it's not a big deal, but I've just got this OCD thing about symmetry, and it bugs me a little bit. But standing back here and looking at this thing, I'm still very happy with the way this car looks from back here. The interior of this car is a place that I sat in quite a few times. I have reviewed this car twice before, and this one's a little different this time. The SEL does offer leather seats. That's what I've got here. Not all Volkswagens offer them. Even on some trim levels and other models, the best you can get is vinyl or leatherette. But I think because in this class, other cars do offer leather, Volkswagen sort of had to step up. Now, the leather here is a little bit more premium than the vinyl, but not that far from it. The other materials in here, this is the light colored interior, and the wood grain that's here is a little different to me. I'm not hating it, but it just looks a little bit different. I guess that's the best thing I can say about it. There is patterned aluminum trim to go with it. Now, if you like darker woods, if you get the gray or the black interior, there you're going to find it's got a black charcoal color wood. But if you like the warm burl woods of before, that's gone for at least this year. Now, the other materials in here, there is soft touch up here on the dash, on the top of the door panels, but you move beyond that, you do get hard plastics that are a little bit more down to its $22,000 price tag. It's not ultra cheap, but it is something that you notice when you run your hands around the interior and driving around every day. Leather here on the steering wheel, multifunction steering wheel for the trip computer there in the center of the instrument cluster. Classic Volkswagen instrument cluster. You've got 2 round dials. You've got a little information screen there in the center that displays pretty much anything you want to see. And the center console is very well laid out in terms of simplicity. And as I said, the material quality in here is good in the sense that the fit and finish is very good. You're not going to see any panel gaps or things that aren't matching up like some of the other brands I run into there. When it comes to storage, I will say that if you like to put your phone down here in the center console cubby, not exactly the biggest space that there is. You can put it down there in the center console. There are plugs, USB ports, auxiliary, and of course you have your Bluetooth connectivity. Cup holders are in the center. So the layout here is very good with the cup holders there. They don't interfere with your gear shift knob. The start button is down here on the console, and in this car it's plenty reachable, so the ergonomics, not that bad here. Now these seats are pretty comfortable. The leather seats, they are heated as I mentioned. They've got really thick side bolstering here as you can see on the sides, but because this car is really designed for American customers in mind, they're a little bit wider. They're not quite as snug as some of the sport seats that their other cars offer. So I weigh about 170 pounds and I've got a little bit of room to move here, so I could be a little bit bigger and still not feel like I'm being grabbed too hard. The seating position's very good. Outward visibility also very good. Now I can't see any of the hood from here. And I do have power adjustments both here and on the passenger seat, but no memory settings. I will point that out. Steering wheel does tilt and telescope, so getting everything set up does take a little bit of effort, but once you get there, it's pretty good. Back here in the back seat, as you can see, I've got a lot of space, and I mean, I'm talking a lot. These seats here, they're about halfway forward, halfway back, set for my height, 5'9", as if I were sitting up there. And as you can see, they could come back quite a bit further, and I wouldn't have any trouble. Headroom, also very good. There's also a lot of amenities back here. I've got map lights up above me. Down here, baseball game going on over there. What can I do? Anyway, we got vents right there. They work very nicely here, especially when it starts to warm up. There's a USB port, and there's heated seats back here. That's a major bonus in my opinion, because not everybody has that. Now, when it comes to trunk space, we're also pretty good here. We got 15.9 cubic feet back there. These seats do fold down in a 60-40 split to allow you to put larger, longer items in that trunk, and it's just nicely lined with materials. There's even a little bit of a shelf back there, so you can put a few things back there and they're not going to roll all over the place. There is below that a spare tire, always a big bonus, because a lot of cars these days, we're losing that spare tire to an inflator kit, and you still get that here. When it comes to rating this interior, I look at all the things we talked about, plus things like storage. Now, storage down here in the center console, not that big, and as I showed you there in that cubby up there, not very large as well. But overall, it is a pretty well done interior that has a nice look to it. It has that Germanic down to business feel. So the interior comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the infotainment system here, what we've got is the Fender audio system, which is the top of the line for Volkswagen, and the user interface is what they call MIB2. It's an improved version over what they had a few years ago, not only in menus, not only in how easy it is to use, but the actual touchscreen itself is much better. It reacts to your touch much better than it used to. It used to really take a long time. You'd hit a button, you'd have to wait a second or two, hit another button, wait a second or two, and the old menu system used to be very complex. So here, you're able to navigate and do things, and you've also got some swipe recognition here. It recognizes when your hand's close to it, and it sort of wakes up, so to speak, and then it puts things away. Like right here, you can see that I just got a little bit of a bar down there with some controls, and if I keep my hands away from it, it disappears and lets you see the whole thing. So I really think they've done a good job here, and I've said this with other like vehicles that have this system, so it's a no-brainer here. Infotainment gets 5 out of 5 stars. Under the hood of our Passat is the standard engine across the model line. Now you can option a V6, but what's here, 1.8 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. Here it has 170 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. The EPA rates it at 23 mpg city, 34 mpg highway, and 27 mpg combined. Now that's a pretty big spread between low and high on the mpg, and you can attribute that to a small turbocharged engine in a pretty large heavy car. So when you're driving in city, it does work a little bit harder than cars that have larger engines. Now here it's mated exclusively to a 6-speed automatic transmission. This used to offer a manual in the base grade some time back. That's no longer available. So the first question I always ask when we get in and start going is, how does it go? Well, if you wait for it long enough, this does have a modicum of power. This engine does work pretty hard though. It's a 1.8 liter engine. That is a pretty good sized car. So if you really want power, you've got to squeeze that pedal hard, and you might even use the sport gate down here and sort of manually shift it a little bit, which you can do. Now there aren't paddle shifters here, but this lever down here does work pretty good for doing that. Now turbo lag, it is a little bit of a factor, especially around town. So if you're someone that likes to pull out into fast moving traffic, give yourself a little bit of space, because from a stop, when you mash the throttle, there's a little bit of a delay sometimes, but when you're out on the highway and when you're cruising, passing power, I would say we're middle of class for the base engines out there. Now, fuel economy, this is rated at 27 mpg combined. In my time with it, that's exactly what I've gotten. And actually that does lean a little bit more city driving than highway this week than what I normally do. So I would say if I did my normal mix, I might be up into the 28 and 29 with 50-50 highway city driving. So in that way, this is a pretty impressive powertrain overall. It's got good refinement, and it does have a little bit of noise when you really work it, but it's still a little bit smoother than some of the base 4-cylinder engines out there in class that are not turbocharged. So powertrain comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to ride and handling, the first thing that has to be pointed out is that this car does have a very stiff suspension. It's meant to give you that German sports sedan feel. So the bushings, the shocks, the springs are on the firmer side than many of the vehicles in this class. Now, it does have a pretty quiet ride out on the highway at speed, but when you're in town on rougher pavement, it does tend to be a little bit noisier with the tire noise. And if you hit bumps or rough pavement, that does come through a little bit more abruptly than some in class. Now, the steering on this, a little bit on the numb side when it comes to how it feels, but the good news is it does give sharp responses when you do put it into a curve. Now, one thing that needs to be pointed out is this particular car has the lane keeping. It will actually sort of, watch those lines, and if you start veering, it'll push you back into the center. But it's a very aggressive system, and the way it works, actually, I have to say, it's one of the creepier feeling systems I've had. It feels like there's like a snake or a worm down there in the steering rack, just sort of slowly writhing around and pushing back and forth on the steering wheel, and it just kind of creeps me out. Not all the systems do that, but this one does. It just does. So good news is you can turn it off if it bothers you, but it does work very well, at least in terms of doing its job. Anyway, chassis comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. On the measure of quality, very important to me. I always grip and grab, and I look for loose things. I listen for rattles, things like that. And what we've got here is a very well-built car. Paint finish, very good. Body fit and alignment, very good. Built in the United States, but it has German standards. The one thing I could say is the interior materials a little bit on the basic side, built to that starting price of right around $22,000. Now, this is the first video. Also, we've now rolled in warranty as part of the quality measure. Here, we've got 3 years, 36 bumper to bumper, 5 years, 60,000 for the powertrain. And even though that bumper to bumper is on the lower end of the scale, Volkswagen sort of almost makes up for it on the back end with the rust and perforation, because 12 years, 120,000 miles. So 5, 6, 7, 10 years after you buy this car, you might very well be paying for repairs mechanically speaking, but if it rusts, they're going to take care of you. So quality score comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. Safety is a very important thing to me, and even though I don't use it in the scoring for my test drives, I like to show you how the IIHS rates these cars. Now here, as you can see, this performs good in all of their tests. Very, very good. But one thing it doesn't do very well is the headlights, and now they use that as part of their top safety pick plus criteria. These headlights here, the LED as well as the halogens, they don't make the cut. They only get a poor rating at night. So this is a top safety pick, but not a top safety pick plus. All right, my friends, let's wrap it up for the Passat. As you can see here when we look at the specs, pricing on this one right around $31,000 and some change. And when I look at how that compares to similar levels of trim from Honda, from Toyota, from Ford, some of the others, I think it's a pretty good value here, because this is sort of a mono-spec thing. Volkswagen doesn't do a lot of standalone packages or options on their cars. You pretty much get it the way they build it. And here we've got the heated leather seats, the top-of-the-line Fender audio system, navigation, satellite radio, a lot of nice features inside that make it nice to live with every day. And it's just got a nice German character that if you happen to like that, it does stand out in class. So I put value here at 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. Very good. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. All right, my friends, if you like the test drive you just saw, I invite you to click right there and see some of the other test drives we do. I usually test drive 1 or 2 cars a week, so there's always something new. Or click the round logo right there and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Either way, stay tuned.